Benton. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Benton City Council meeting. It's December the 20th. Okay, let's see. I think I will ask Carla this time to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Carla. Okay. We are now going to swear in Diana Alcazar. So Diana, you want to come up here next to me, please? I, Diana Alcazar, do solemnly swear
I, Diana Alcazar, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform
and discharge the duties
and discharge the duties
of the office of City of Benton City Council Position 5.
of. You want that?
I will, okay, I'll read it to you again. And discharge the duties
And discharge the duties
of the office
of the office of
City of Benton City
City of Benton City
Council Position 5,
Council Position 5,
according to law
according to law
and to the best of my ability.
and to the best of my ability.
Welcome. All right. Okay. All right. Okay, roll call, please.
Councilwoman Wadsworth.
Here.
Councilman Sandretto,
Here.
Councilman Reed,
Present.
Councilwoman Funk,
Present.
Councilwoman Alcazar.
Here.
Okay. Everyone's here tonight. Thank you all for coming in and braving the weather. Okay, moving now to the consent agenda.
Madam Mayor, I have a correction to the regular council minutes from December 6th.
Okay, would you like to pull the regular council minute from the 6th out
Yes,
of the
please.
consent agenda? Okay, so hold, we will do those right after the rest of this. Okay. Would anyone entertain a motion to do the rest of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
all right, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Sandretto.
Wadsworth, aye.
Funk, aye. Alcazar, aye.
Okay. Motion carries. Now we'll move back to the question of the minutes.
Yeah, so on PDF page 10, regular reports, item H, 2B, follow up with Representative Skylar Rude. There's just a correction to spelling. So Skylar is spelled Skyler, and his last name is spelled Rude. That's the only correction that I had.
Well, I'd also like to correct page 4 for the same reason. In the exact same format. Under item B, section 2.
Okay,
Is that the same one? On PDF page 10?
Mine's on
Page four.
PDF, page 4. Yeah,
Okay, same one. Cool.
okay.
Thank you.
okay, thank you. All right. So I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes from main council agenda.
Move to approve as corrected.
Second.
Reed, aye.
All right. All
Funk,
in
aye.
favor?
Wadsworth, aye.
Sandretto, aye.
Alcazar, aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Now moving on to The discussion item, 23 and 24, proposed budget.
I think there's more. Are there any visitor comments?
I don't know. Do we have any visitor comments tonight? Okay, hearing none. We'll move to the discussion item on the proposed budget.
How about the regular reports?
Well, you have bills and communications
I have,
and then regular.
oh,
reports.
Yes.
Madam Mayor, you didn't ask for approval of the agenda?
I'm going to do that, yes.
Okay.
I was going by my packet here instead of my agenda. Okay, so the next item is the approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes or additions to the agenda?
I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second. It's all you. Let's read for the second.
Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Sandra, aye.
Reed, I.
Wadsworth, aye. Funk, aye. Alcazar, aye.
Okay, and we have no proclamations that I know of. Are there any acknowledgements? If not, no visitor comments, as we just heard. So we'll move now to discussion item on the proposed budget.
Yeah.
It was in the consent agenda.
And there was no comments on it.
Okay.
So it's already approved. How about staff reports, the sheriff report and everything else? Do
That
you want?
comes after visit. Oh, okay. Well,
That says it's before the
okay,
discussion. item on
regular
the
reports.
agenda.
We have staff reports. And we have sheriff's report that was turned in, but he will not be here. But Mr. Reed has agreed to summarize the report.
Yeah, so I spoke with Commander Clark the other day. He's enjoying some vacation time. And he again stated the statistics from last year to this year are still decreasing. Things are looking pretty good. And if anybody is curious, the closest news article to a very serious drug bust that happened in our area, look at the article on Cap K-View. It was very close. There was a kilo of cocaine, a couple pounds of meth, and something like 15,000 fentanyl pills taken off the streets
Wow.
in a Benton County and federal partner, state and federal partner drug bust. So huge kudos to them for
Yeah.
getting
absolutely.
that taken care of.
Thank you. Okay, are there any committee meeting reports?
Let's see. Since our last meeting, I attended the Ben Franklin Transit board of directors meeting. Nothing really to report there. Standard approvals. And then I also attended the Good Roads meeting and had the opportunity to speak with several of our elected officials a little bit. Other than that, that's all I have to report on those two.
Okay. Anyone else?
Madam Mayor, I have a couple quick updates. On Monday, the 19th, we had that session with Representative Skylar Rude. It was Madam Mayor, myself, and Alan who attended. And got him up to speed on some of the key projects that we're working on here in Benton City. We also asked for clarification around his priorities that are most interesting to him related to the potential for a Washington State capital budget request. That Washington State capital budget request form has been emailed to council and city staff. Representative Rude was enthusiastic to hear about Benton City. And in terms of priorities, he said his priorities are our priorities. And encouraged, I think a key item would be that while the forms are not due until close to the end of of January, for them to be considered by his office, along with State Senator Dozier and our other representative, he really needs to have forms in draft form by around January 6th, maybe early the next week, because they'll be getting together to talk about what it is that they'll be taking forward. The couple of items that we brought up specific to funding priorities were what was his level of interest around street sweeper He said, if you need a street sweeper, that's a good priority. And when you talk about the dollar amount, that's something, maybe he can help make happen between 23, 24. And then we were kind of going through other projects and things the city's working on and looking at. And we mentioned the City Hall building on Main Street and the asbestos issues. And although we don't have the numbers today around how much that might cost for remediation, he said if we had them in time and that was something someone wanted to fill out an application around, that could be an item for potential funding that could fall into a specific category of capital budget. And then he'd given some examples like they'd helped out the courthouse in Walla Walla, which was kind of unusual, and some of his other support like around the City of Starbucks rodeo. And we have the list of other examples, but if there's anything else that came up and people were interested in completing a form, there's no minimum or maximum forms that we can put in for the 2023-2024 year. It's just they really need to have some direction that first week of January, very early the next part for any consideration. I think that was kind of the highlights from that discussion. And then today we had our quarterly meeting. Is it quarterly? With a BF COG and our federal representatives. And I just wanted to highlight that the $2 million for the train bridge acquisition continues to be making its way through the final Omni bill federally, which we expect to have passed hopefully at the end of this week, because everyone wants to get out of there. As we work to get some more information from representatives' offices today, they said, well, if it doesn't get done, everyone's going to have to ruin Christmas and be back in the office next week. So it's great that the federal appropriations continue to be on the list of funding priorities. We actually have the attention of Benton County around this project, and they'd emailed quite early this morning their representative and government affairs consultant before we even had the BF COG meeting, and said we were still on the list. So that was really great to get an update for them. Newhouse's office recommended that I said, so do we need to work on a press release right now? And they recommended that we wait to do a press release until 2023 for a number of reasons, including the fact that once the appropriation is awarded, the people who give out the money have up to 90 days to contact the city to talk more about what the expectations, timing, process, and everything else is. And it'd be good to get some more inklings around that to help support the press release when it goes out.
And we also had a pretty good discussion on the FEMA issue that we have, and she recommended that I get somebody from the decision maker from Fish and Wildlife to attend the FEMA meeting that's scheduled now for January the 9th. So that will be a meeting between ecology, Fish and Wildlife, and FEMA. And they seemed quite interested in that. They wanted to know who was going, and so maybe we'll get some support on that as well. Okay, are there any other items that anyone has regarding committee meeting reports or anything? Okay. Hearing none. Now we'll talk about the budget. Are there any comments on the budget?
I just see a few syntax things on page 56 of 257 there. It's like the second page, third page of the budget.
Oh, yeah, we got the council position wrong. Yes, I
For-
have
yeah,
her correct.
And I
Yes.
believe my expiration of term is wrong too, unless I'm incorrect.
I didn't see what it was. It's the end of it's
2025?
23, right?
It's 23 is what
23.
it should be.
Yeah.
It says 25.
Oh, that's,
Keeping you around.
I believe, unless there's something I missed. Is that correct?
No, that's my understanding.
Yeah.
okay. Are there any questions on this budget?
Madam Mayor, may I have the floor?
Yes, you may.
So I just want to start off by saying, way to go on such a big effort to get everything put in here. I think those have been a real big undertaking over the last weeks and months, and especially with new staff, I think we're really fortunate to be in the position that we're in. I also understand and appreciate that it's imperative that we approve a budget tonight. And that the city can work on continuing to make modifications, clarifications, improvements and everything else in January or sometime in 2023. We don't have to wait until the middle to end of 2023. Is that correct?
So you know. For
Uh,
budget modification.
Like we can be talking about them all the time and then there's a timeline and process and
So we
everything to get
finalize
submitted to get
22.
finalized to the
For,
state.
for the mid biennium, like the 8 month
Mhm,
modifications,
mhm.
correct, and then there's leeway within the statute to modify for other purposes, yeah.
Which could be discussed again in January of
Typically-
2023 or
right.
other points of time.
Right,
but we
and those
need
would
to-
typically be preceded by a, legislative action.
So while I absolutely commend the work that's been completed, I do think that there's some more work to do in terms of the budget, if what we're approving is what's in the packet, this big packet. Because I think that some of the Hope Lane water projects from 2022 have ended up in the proposed column again. It's just there's a lot of different versions and stuff like that, and there's a couple of negative ending balances at this point in time that are presented in this packet. Again, I understand it needs to get approved tonight, and I think the majority items, when I look at them, are exactly what we workshopped around as early as last week, Thursday, but not all of them. So I would just caution that I think more attention is needed as we get into the new year at the appropriate point in time.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? If not, we can move to the first reading of ordinance 1050, which is the adoption of the 2023-24 biennial budget.
I may be remiss in this, but don't we have to have a public hearing on that?
This is actually a continuation of our public hearing from when was our first public hearing? In November of was it November 22nd? I'd have to look at the calendar. It was right before, directly before Thanksgiving. Go back here.
Well, talk to me.
So on November 22nd was our first hearing. That was preceded by 2 weeks' notice in the paper, which would have began on November 8th. And then that hearing, my understanding was that hearing was continued from the 22nd then to December 6th. Is that right, Madam Clerk?
I believe so.
And then from December 6th, I believe it was continued again to the 13th. And then was it continued again to the 15th?
We didn't continue it to the 15th.
And then again to this evening's,
Tonight.
right? So the statute reads that that we need to notice and have that hearing before the first Monday in December, which we did because we had it in November 22nd. And then that hearing can be continued from day to day thereafter, but in any event has to conclude before the 25th. And then the final budget has to be adopted before the next ensuing biennium, which would be the first.
All right.
But from a practical standpoint, typically when that hearing concludes, then there would be action on that item, right? Final action. Although there's a window period between when that hearing has to conclude and when the budget needs to be adopted, typically those occur very close in time, if that makes sense. The councils typically don't end the hearing and then come back, 5 days later and take final action on the budget. It's typically that hearing is concluded and then action's done typically in that same meeting.
Well, that's not what I asked. What I asked is if we need to do a public hearing tonight. If you're saying that we've completed a public hearing, then
Well, it's been a
we-
continuation of our public hearings
that's
from,
fine. Do we need to end it and say there's no more public comment? And
we need to conclude our public hearing before the 25th, and this is our last opportunity for that. So yes,
So should I adjourn the council and have a public hearing?
I think so, because
that would be the correct process.
All right, so let's
Rob,
do that
forward.
now then. Is everyone in agreement?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I am ending the regular session of city council. And now we're moving into public hearing. So this will be the public hearing on the 2023 and 2024 biennial budget. Is there anyone that would like to speak on the budget? Is there anyone online that would like to speak on the budget? Okay. Hearing none. I can close the public hearing. And this will terminate the public hearing process on the biennial budget. Okay, moving back into public meeting. The public council meeting is now open again, and we can take action on this budget.
Mayor, if I could just ask for one kind of clarification item, I'd like, because in our agenda. It shows, so for K1, we have our first reading of ordinance 1050 adoption of the biennial budget, and then 2 emergency resolution. 2022-16 for second reading, and then adoption of the biennial budget. But I
Yes.
don't see, maybe I'm missing something, but I don't see item K2 in our packet. Do we have a K2 in our pack? Because that's the
That's the
emergency resolution.
emergency budget. I
I
thought
think,
I
I
had.
think it's on PDF page 136.
136.
That's correct.
Well, that's the yellow page I see.
Oh, I don't
That
see the
contains
resolution
the-
attached.
Language, and I see an
had seen
ordinance.
that.
Mhm. Not the emergency piece.
But I don't
Mhm.
see the resolution. And
It's in the, behind the.
I know-
Isn't it behind this is ordinance
it may be somewhere else in the packet. and I'm missing it.
1050?
You've got the regular ordinance 1050 on PDF page 137.
Right, but then directly after that is the wages and benefits.
And you're looking for an emergency resolution.
I'm looking, yeah, correct,
Which does not seem to appear in the PDF, at least in one way.
right.
Um,
Let me look at something real quick. Apology.
Okay, so we just need to define the emergency resolution and we can move forward with that, but we need to do the first reading, correct?
Mhm.
So let's get that out of the way.
Okay. This is the first reading of ordinance 1050, adoption of the 2023-2024 biennial budget.
I move to approve on its first reading ordinance 1050, an ordinance of the city of Benton City, Washington, adoption of the 2023-2024 biennial budget.
Second,
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Sandra, do I?
Wadsworth, aye.
Great eye.
Okay. Alcazar, aye. Funk abstain.
Okay,
What?
Well, I said aye to this one. Sorry, aye. Yeah, you're right. Aye. Sorry, where am I at?
okay,
Lost. Need more candy canes.
okay.
More
Motion
candy
carries.
canes? You got candy canes?
I only have one. Do you want the other half?
No, but
Sorry.
you gotta bring enough for everybody.
My apologies.
Well, I have a resolution in my packet.
The emergency one?
Yes. And it says resolution number 2022
Okay,
-16. A resolution declaring that an emergency exists with reference to ordinance number 1050. Adopting the biennial budget. Would you like me just to read it and then we can move forward?
where was that at in the packet?
Well, it was right behind
It's in
the
the printed packet, but
emergency
nobody else got it.
resolution in mine.
Oh, because I pulled, this was the packet that I pulled just as I arrived here from the webpage. What I'm noting here is that our ordinance, so. There's nothing in state law that requires us to do 2 readings. We do 2 readings. Just as a matter of course, we've done that. As long as I can remember, it's a part of our code. I don't see that our code requires a written resolution specifically to make this declaration of an emergency. It states that an ordinance may be passed on the day of its introduction if it is declared to be of emergency nature by a 2/3 vote of the entire council present.
Well,
So I
hold
think
on.
so long as the council took a 2/3 affirmative vote to make a declaration with regard to an emergency, then they can move forward on that item. So if you want to maybe.
Okay, well,
grab
I do
Carla.
have it right here. I can read it if they
Okay,
would
or
like
the-
to approve that.
And that would be fine too, but I'm
Okay.
just saying that it's not included in the packet that we published to the,
Yes.
So you need a vote by 2/3 of council.
that's all
to
that's required
pass.
by our ordinance. Typically, we do that by a resolution. You know, that we've done that in the past.
I
by
make
resolution.
I make a motion for emergency resolution of 2022-16 related to the budget.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Dunk, I.
Sandra, do I?
Wadsworth, I.
Reed, I.
Alcazar, I.
Okay, motion carries. All right. And then we have, moving on to the second reading of ordinance 1050. An ordinance of the city of Benton City adopting the 2023-2024 biennial budget.
Didn't we just do that?
We have to do the second reading on the second reading.
Since the packet didn't have the emergency ordinance in it and it wasn't given to the public, what we just voted on was like affirmation that we were okay with it being an emergency is what I understand.
Yes, it says, that was for the, it says here for the second reading of ordinance 1050.
Right.
An ordinance of the city of Benton City, Washington.
I move to approve on its second reading ordinance 1050, an ordinance of the city of Benton City adoption of the 2023-24 biennium budget.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Sandra, do I?
Wadsworth, I.
Reed, I.
Dunk, I.
Alcazar, I.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
But it wasn't on the public.
Okay, then the next item we have our approval of all the ordinances. And we have then the first reading of ordinance 1051, wages and benefits.
Madam Mayor, can I ask a procedural question?
Yes.
There was discussion around canceling, if I understand correctly, the January 3rd meeting. Do we have to do a second reading by the January 3rd meeting of this? Like, if we cancel the meeting, will that be a problem? Will you need a special meeting to get this done? Is there is there a due date for it, which could be in conflict?
I don't know, that's
This is
a
a part
question.
of our
for-
budget, isn't it? Our wages and salary. Hold on, I'm trying to get that.
Well, we can do it this way. I move to approve on its first and second reading. Ordinance 1051 under an emergency declaration, wages and benefits, the ordinance of the city of Benton City, Washington.
I second and I'd like to have discussion.
Go ahead.
Go ahead and have discussion.
Yeah, you
Yes.
seconded.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. So just as a point of clarification, the ordinance has salaries and wages which are higher than what's in the budget for 2023 by approximately $30,000. Primarily related to the general fund for about 5,000 and then some combination of water, sewer and parks for the other 2022. So the ordinance is what's being approved and this will be an item that needs to get reviewed and updated to align in the budget. Probably in January. Thank you.
So the
Alright.
budget is not correct, but this is.
Yes,
Yes,
that's my understanding.
Okay.
And the budget is lower.
Okay. We got,
okay,
That's it.
we have a first and a second motion. So-
Sandra, do I?
Wadsworth, I.
Reed, I.
Okay.
Okay,
Alcazar, I.
motion.
Mayor Lehman, may I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
For that emergency declaration, would there need to be a resolution for that?
No, it just
Not on
requires a
this one.
2/3 affirmative vote of the council.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I picked up on that when he said it the first time. That's why I skipped through that.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item is the second reading of ordinance I can't read anymore. My glasses are not strong enough.
10:45.
10:45, tiny houses.
Also move. So long recommended opening that I'll move to adopt ordinance 10:45 on its second reading.
Second,
Any discussion?
Mm-mm.
Sandra, do I?
Wadsworth, I.
Reed, I.
Funk, I.
Alcazar, I.
Okay, motion carries.
Madam Mayor, can I ask one other just procedural question?
Sure.
So we have some guests in the audience who didn't give visitor comments and aren't normally at our meetings. I know we have a lot of second readings here. Is there something that they wanted to speak on? Can we ask?
Yeah,
If
certainly.
that's okay, just I don't, if are there specific items that you all were interested in speaking on, or we really appreciate you being here. I just want to make sure if you wanted to be heard that you have that opportunity.
Nothing for me yet.
Okay,
I'm not shy, I'll let you know.
okay. Sorry, and I apologize for the
That's all right.
interruption. I just, I realized one time, perhaps that's occurred and I just wanted to ask.
Okay,
Thank
all
you.
right. Okay, the next item is the second reading of ordinance 1046. Proposed adoption of Benton City Municipal Code 2062, residential design standards.
I move to approve on the second reading of ordinance 1046, an ordinance for the city of Benton City, Washington, adopting Benton City Municipal Code, chapter 20.62, residential design standards.
Do I have a second?
Second,
Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Sandra, do I?
Wadsworth, I.
Reed, I.
Funk, I.
Alcazar, I.
Okay, motion carries. The next item is the second reading of ordinance 1047, amending Benton City Code Municipal Code, chapter 2024, R3 Residential High Density District. And I'm going to once again object to this, but I would like to have a discussion because I think I have an idea that may satisfy my needs and other people's needs.
I'm supportive of discussion because I had outstanding questions for AHBL that are noted on our minutes on page 18. I move to approve on its second reading of ordinance 1047, an ordinance of the city of Benton City, Washington, proposed revision of Benton City Municipal Code 20.24 R3 residential high density district, and request discussion.
Second, call for discussion.
Okay. What I'm thinking is after I did some calculations with this, I found that it would be possible to put two of these duplexes on a fourplexes on a quarter of an acre lot, given the square footage and everything that's given in the code. There's also only a 10-foot spacing between buildings. And so what I'm proposing is that perhaps this would be okay for infilling. And we need some sort of definition for infilling. But when we have a new development, let's not negate our chances of having something really nice. Let's make it look beautiful. Let's make them face the streets. Let's, have something that looks nice, not something that's jammed in to, where there's no air between the buildings. And that's what I'm urging, is that we look at maybe adopting this for infilling and then come back and look at some of these standards. We also will need to look at the parking standards before we pass a lot of this. I have heard from the maintenance crew that, you heard me talk about Bell Avenue and some of the other streets, but the maintenance crew informed me that the new, now I can't think of the name of it, the
Blacktop Estates.
Blacktop Estates is really terribly crowded with cars on the street everywhere. And to me, that represents a danger for young children, because I know with Bell Avenue, they're running out in the streets in between the cars, catching balls and whatnot. And I would just rather have more required parking for these high density units. And and residences. I mean, I think we can do more and have a better product if we look at maybe separating it out for the places that we can't really change, that they are small lots. But then let's look at a development, which is what we really want in town.
And maybe further to that concern, and this is in the minutes from last time, and part of the clarification that we asked for is we just still have a lot of really narrow streets here in Benton City. Really, really narrow. And when you've got 2 to 4 cars in front of some of these homes, some of these streets are just not wide enough to support that. And you got people parked in front of fire hydrants, you got people doing all sorts of things, parking with this way, that way, and everything else. So like the parking would be the thing I'm kind of coming back to, related to this specifically as well for consideration.
So does anyone else have any thoughts on this?
And I don't know if you'd had any other chance for considering any thoughts. I think that was part of the discussion last time, kind of around the parking related to Benton City specifically. We know there's a lot of great solutions in other places where there's a lot of space, but some of the spaces we have right now, it doesn't appear that it's working quite as well as maybe could be desired.
So I did give this some thought, and I think you have 2 options for moving forward right now. I think that you could pass this on the second reading tonight. And then it's not set in stone. Codes are a living thing. Like, you don't want to change one code a million times in 1 year, but if you are looking at Title 20, as we proposed last year, if you're going to look at all of Title 20, then you could go back to R3 and go through and potentially make some of these changes, or at least direct your staff to research these changes and take it through another public hearing process with the Planning Commission as all of Title 20. And then also bring in your parking concerns at that point, because there's nothing about parking in the R3 zone right now, because it's in your code. It's an entirely separate chapter.
Mhm.
So that would be my suggestion. Number 1 is to pass it on a second reading and then get what's in there now, get that accomplished and get that down and get it in your code and start moving forward. Lifting your moratorium, taking all those steps, getting back into it, and then you can address those things later. Your second option I see is to postpone your decision and potentially remand this back to your Planning Commission. They spend a lot of time working on these codes, and the public also needs to know about and needs to think about and have the opportunity to comment on any kind of major changes that you're going to make to it at this point. That would be my 2 recommended options for you.
My only worry is that if we go ahead and adopt it, and then go through all this process, and I guess we could still hold the moratorium. I just don't want to adopt something and then have somebody start in the process thinking they're going to be able to do this in a new development. I don't want to in any way jeopardize the little bit of area we have left that could be nice. And that's my concern. I'd rather work this out, together with everyone, and then take it back to planning and let them know what our desires are. But I don't want to take a chance on losing, having this apply somehow if we pass it. As far as I'm concerned, this negates all the good designs and everything that you've put in there by allowing this kind of spacing and everything. I just, it worries me.
Wondering if maybe part of the answer might be through maybe our parking code, and maybe taking a look at that and seeing what currently required. I think what do we require for residents is two parking spaces per single-family residence in the city.
I think that's the current interpretation. As
Right now,
Councilmember
we
Funk
have
pointed
to-
out, the parking code for multifamily is
Unclear.
obscure.
Very
Unclear.
obscure, incredibly obscure.
That would
But
probably be
what's applied generally is two per.
maybe generally a good item to include, as for further discussion, because I think really that's probably where I think it's partly an issue with space, but then also partly an issue with that separate code that is playing together with this one, right? So we need to make sure that we have adequate, parking space for whether it's an infill development or new construction. I think that's something we want to consider maybe in that portion of our code.
Then if you want to add that in, the recommendation would be to remand it back to the planning commission. Because that's a major. That's going in a different direction than what's being proposed. And what you've already passed for a first
Right.
reading.
Well, our residential design standards, is that typically where we deal with parking? I thought
No.
parking was
No.
definitely, and that's what I'm
It's in
getting at.
Chapter 1016.
Yeah, I don't know that there's anything more that needs to be done to this draft ordinance. I think that issue could be addressed through parking. That
Parking
code
sections.
is what I'm trying to get at.
Can we talk about it from a practical standpoint?
Sure.
So HBL is basically done if we get through these second readings tonight. And basically done anyway. We have a contract to approve for a planner to help do a little bit of work, tiny bit of work, planning company that is, up to $50,000 a year, which from my perspective may make it very hard to try to tackle parking. We have support in our budget to hire a planner, which may take some time to find. We're also in a building moratorium. And the obscureness of how parking is currently termed. I think parking's a lot easier to deal with than traffic. I think traffic, there's no way. We're years away from being in a good place to be able to deal with traffic. But I think parking, I guess from a practical standpoint, the sequencing I just laid out are those things we can accomplish quickly? Does anybody think we can accomplish this quickly? I mean, is that something we can get done in the next 60 days, pass this tonight on the second reading, and then let's just deal with parking and let's just get it all done, and then we have something that makes sense, and then we lift the moratorium, or they're just completely separate, and we have a lot of pressure to lift the moratorium, which makes a lot of sense, but you've got things that are really obscure, and of the space that's left to be developed, parking is impacted in this space. We're not talking about single family homes. That's not the big thing we have left to develop in Benton City. We've got R2 and we've got R3. So personally, I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think, not only parking, but some of the parameters that are outlined in this R3 is 10 feet between buildings. And I that's just,
So it sounds like, again, an additional, and I understand originally when we adopted the moratorium, it was for the purposes of adopting these residential design standards. Sounds like now is that what we're realizing is that it's broader than that. That it may also encompass this piece with respect to parking. We did extend our moratorium. I'm not sure exactly when the
it's
expiration date.
May.
May. So
Yeah.
that still gives us time. I mean, and as
Yeah.
I explained at the last council meeting, or maybe it was prior before that, there's not like some triggering effect by, as soon as we adopt our residential design standards, then that moratorium's expired. We need to take affirmative action to do that. And so, adopting those standards tonight doesn't, necessarily open those floodgates. If we still think that there's a good reason how that moratorium in place, because we feel that there may be some impact with respect to our current parking ordinance in these areas, or the city at large, then that's probably something we want to address before we lift. our
Well, I think we
moratorium.
have to conform the whole of part 20 to this. And I'd like to be happy with what we have in R3. So we know what we're conforming to.
May I add something? So yes, our contract is complete after these readings tonight. However, we did do a lot of work on Title 20. That process has been started and that's yours. That's your
Yes.
product. We will,
Right,
you know,
we understand that.
that's either in the hands of the city now or it
Mhm.
will be. I haven't looked at it in several months, so I don't remember what changes we proposed for parking. But that's certainly something that when you take it to a public hearing or when someone takes it to a public hearing to the planning commission, that's certainly something that can be talked about and worked out as far as parking.
Well, when we're having discussion, it's probably really useful to hear from what other council members think.
Yeah,
'Cause
really.
it's more important to hear what other people think than just my opinion.
So I have one question and one concern. The first question is if we have parking in two separate administrative codes, how is that gonna contradict itself?
Yeah, they have to be the
Am
same.
I-
So so I'm looking at it right now. I see parking. So I see a section called off-street parking, which is in chapter 20.57. And then I see a section in Title 10, and I don't know if that's applicable here to what we're discussing. Just entitled parking 1016.
I think you could be right. Let's see. 2057-06. I think it might be in 2057-06.
The parking's in 2057.
So that's off-street parking.
Which then refers you to section 2057-70.
So minimum parking. So in the C1 district, one space for every 400 square feet of gross floor area.
But that's for boarding houses, right?
Our districts is required by 2057-70. And 2057-70 states. Shall be as follows, and then there's specific requirements depending on the use. Dwelling multifamily, 2 spaces for each dwelling unit. Provided, however, area buildings need not exceed 25% of the total number of dwelling units. And then manufactured home subdivisions, 2 spaces per lot. 2 spaces per trailer space. So yeah, I mean, there's some pretty specific requirements depending on the use of the property that we have listed in 2057-070.
And a lot of it's from, it looks like, it appears 2003.
Mhm.
And that may perhaps have been appropriate when maybe more families had 2 cars, but I live in a cul-de-sac. There's not one house on the whole street that I live on that has 2 cars in front of it.
Yeah. So we know we have to conform the rest of part 20 anyway.
But I guess to get back to Councilmember Reed's original, it obviously is a problem if we mention it in 2 different places in our code. We'd probably want to keep it with respect to, the parking issue here we're talking about with respect to, multifamily residents or single family residents. We want to make sure that we address that in a single part of our code and not be discussing it in separate pieces of the code and then creating conflict, internally. So it looks like right now that's dealt with in 2057. We have that other section reference, but I think that's talking about something completely different. So
Yeah, we go to 2057 for parking. We don't go anywhere else for it. And then as far as making sure the rest of the code conforms, that's how we ended up proposing changes to R3, was when we were working on the design standards. We went through the code to find out
Or
If-
things that.
if and where there would be conflicts.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
think
where we
most-
started adding stuff to R3.
Yeah, I think most of your work on 20 is great. That's already done. But it's just this part that.
But I guess in reference to parking and parking alone. Being that you have to approve a site plan. And the site plan has to include parking locations. That would pretty much say that we can dictate. Whatever's proposed to us in the site plan that's reasonable for parking, correct?
For buildings over 30 feet, a site plan is required, 30 feet tall. So yes. And parking is one of the things, one of the elements that are considered when you look at a site plan. It would have to fit within the parameters of the site. It couldn't be in the front setback or any of the setbacks as applicable.
But that would be the reason to deny the site plan if they didn't
Correct,
have
they would-
adequate. So,
They would
So
have to
we
have a
have the-
minimum of 2 per for multi
Right.
buildings.
so
and-
there is a mechanism,
Correct.
if this is approved, that we can stop. Anybody who's doing something out of. What's
And-
considered public safety, right?
Correct. And for preliminary plats, you can condition them. There are minimum lot sizes required for platting. Also per the zone. You have to have a certain amount of street frontage when you do a preliminary plat, but you can condition a preliminary plat also. Like you can put conditions on it. I
I
don't-
just think it'll be harder if it's in our rule for 2 and then we don't have it. And then we're forcing them to do 4. I think we should have it in our code, what we want.
But what I'm getting to, Madam Mayor, is that approval of this does not negate at this particular moment anything. We can dictate what is in the public interest
I heard
until we can get the parking code to match what you want. Now, going back to the other piece, the building distance says a minimum of 10 feet. That is a guideline that, again, looking at a binding site plan, we can say, well, we don't like that because it's not in the public interest. It's too close. The neighborhood doesn't allow for it. It doesn't work with our site's standards, right?
Correct. You have to meet setbacks. You have to provide either open space or active recreation space. That has to go somewhere.
Right.
You have to have modulation in your building. So, if there are bump outs on the building, they have to be at least 10 feet away from each other. There are other factors, yes.
So under this particular piece, we as the council in the finalization of the site plan or the administrator, whoever that is, can dictate those pieces until we can get it placed in our parking code or our other codes, whatever we need to do, making adjustments.
Yes. And council wouldn't see site plans. You were correct. It would be it's an administrative review.
I was just throwing it around there, but yeah, okay.
Now, you said for buildings over 30 feet. Did you mean in height?
Yes.
So if it's over 30 feet high, we can use this administrative process. But if it's not, if it's only 2 stories, then we can't use that, right?
I'm going to check. But yes. So it says multifamily residential buildings provided that so this is under the allowed uses. It says multifamily residential buildings provided that no individual structure shall contain more than 8 dwelling units, and further provided that when any building on a lot exceeds 30 feet in height, the entire project is subject to site plan review. So yes.
But typical fourplexes aren't over 30 feet in height.
Not unless the peak's too high, but you got a 5-to-1 peak ratio now. So I don't know, depending on the width of the building, you're gonna be pretty close to your 30 feet.
So I have a feeling it's gonna be fairly
It's gonna
close.
be a lot of manipulation.
Yeah. And so based on everything I've heard here, it sounds logical that we finish the approval on this. We get to work, or the office gets to work on reviewing parking under the R3 set. And we start taking a look at what we can do for the shorter buildings as far as making sure that you have some sort of review of action. And then we can hopefully have that done by beginning of February and roll back this moratorium by then.
So you don't want to remand it back to planning?
I don't think it's necessary, but
I
that's
don't
my
either.
opinion.
I feel if we put it in R3, it's gonna be a conflict to our current parking code.
I
Well,
think.
we have to adopt, we have to correct that. We're not gonna,
But I also,
this until
I
we
also
amend
feel
it.
we're getting dangerously close into a new year where we may lose permits and contracting abilities if we continue this moratorium. I do have concerns about that, and it has been voiced to me several times by multiple members of the public. And I think we're gonna wind up losing business to other cities, contractors, if we can't get a grip on this in a shorter amount of time.
So will parking in Title 20 need to go through planning commission and public hearing and all the other pieces? Okay, so that won't get done
Yeah.
by the beginning of February.
No, I'll probably push back into March or better.
yeah,
I share your concerns, Councilman Reed, and I know lifting the moratorium is definitely important.
well, the intent is not to lift the moratorium until Title 20 is conformed.
So they're not finishing Title 20. We still
Well,
looking for
she's
some.
done a lot of work on it, and I think what we have to do is look at the parking and any other parts that are not conform to what we have, what we want in the R3 and R2.
Well, I was going, basically, if we're gonna wait until Title 20 is done, parking's done, all that stuff's done, we're gonna be into September, October, before you lift this moratorium.
Well,
And hear me out.
okay,
I think that our citizens are already fed up with the moratorium. There's a lot of concerns out there. I've heard 3 or 4 of them now. I just think we need to be moving forward with everything we need to get done. Bam, 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 so that we can get to the point and pull that moratorium. Now, whether that's, we have to light a fire under whoever it is to finish Title 20 and adjust those things that need to be adjusted so it can go through planning and come back to us. That's fine. But we need to get moving on this. And the first step to that, I believe, is to approve this tonight.
the first step is what?
To approve this tonight.
The way it stands.
Yes.
So you would be okay if somebody comes in and puts a whole bunch of these things 10 feet apart and all the stuff that we've seen coming in, you would be approving all of those?
I have not been happy with a lot of the things that have happened recently. I have trailers next to my house that are 10 feet apart. But the point
Yes.
is that we've already put a delay on this for almost a year now.
Well, we have it until the delay right now until May.
Right.
I would like us to get our house in order to what we want so that we're not negating all this work she's done by allowing to allow this kind of stuff that's going on.
I don't think this is negating it. That's what I'm telling you. This has to be approved and the places it needs to be fixed are not in here.
Correct.
Well, I disagree. I think there's some in here that need to be corrected.
Can I ask a question, Millyanne? What is the common distance between normal fourplexes, let's say in a different city? Is it 10 feet? Is that a common practice? And
Yes, because that is, I believe, based on building code also. Mhm.
Well, I feel like I feel like personally doing a disservice to people in this community that deserve to have something nice by just pushing this through, because the developers are going to go by this. And we're not going to have any recourse if it's in the rule. That's how it is. I just, I hate to see all that good work done because maybe we'll have nice facades, but they're gonna be facing each other. They're not gonna be seen from the street. Unless we ask for it. That's all I'm saying. I just want something nice for the city. I don't want to see stuff jammed in. Just a well-planned community.
I guess, I guess looking at it from what I'm seeing is, I understand your concern, and if it was single family homes, I think 10 feet would be extremely close. But these are more or less designed to have that compact living. A lot of times there isn't yards because they don't want to have yards. They choose that lifestyle because it's easy maintenance. And I know in other areas that they are put in and they have a little strip of green grass in between the fourplexes or whatever it is. So it's something I guess I look at like, if it was just single homes, I would have an issue with it, but where it's designed to house more individuals, more families, it's usually a common practice to have them a little bit tighter in areas, and they usually do have playgrounds and stuff that they can access within that development. And that's something that maybe we could have a say when they come, you know, so much green space and stuff like that in some of our ordinances. Yes. So I guess that's kind of how I'm looking at it.
Madam Mayor, do we know if the contract planner is ready to just get to work?
Yeah, January 6th.
Okay, so I mean, that's terrific, right? To have another contract planner ready to go to work on some of the stuff and just move it forward. I don't hear anybody saying it's not important to get things done expeditiously, which means planning commission meetings will be pre-scheduled and held and worked through, and work's already been done. So that's good.
Okay, Madam Mayor, if you want to stop this from happening, I'll do it, but it falls at your feet.
Okay,
Understand that.
I
That
understand.
when the
that.
citizens come to me, I'm gonna say,
Go to me. That's
It's
right.
her.
And I'll explain it.
okay,
Now, let me get a take on whether you all are okay with doing this for infill. Because if you are, I think we could do this for infill, because these lots are already so small that we would be infilling. We'd have to come up with a definition. But, and then for new developments, I'd like to see.
I think at this point, it's up to you to take it to the new planners.
Okay,
It depends
you.
though on the vote.
Procedurally,
We'll
we
see
have a
what
first and a
happens.
second.
thank you.
Correct.
Did we have a first and a second?
We had a first and a second.
We had it first, but we're supposed to do the second.
This is the
Tonight.
second right now.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about with our
Approval,
approval. We've had a first and a second to discussion, correct?
right.
Yes.
Procedurally, don't we have to finish this out with a vote of the council?
It is a vote of the council. So
Where-
you four are gonna be the dictation here, but I'm going to give her my no vote tonight. So as soon as she calls for the vote, I'm gonna say no.
But we haven't amended anything.
No.
Correct. It would just be like, let's make sure, because it's a great question.
I'm trying to play this out in my head procedurally.
Procedurally, if more than one person no votes or we're against it, it just kills it or gets brought up later.
It kills it. It has to be
Kills it.
reformulated, and brought back to the table.
Right.
It can be, somebody can make a motion right now and table it. But it's still the same, essentially, same product that will come back to the table. The only way this gets redone is either for the council to redirect it back to the planning commission or for it to die on the table.
Okay.
And I will not recommend it go back to the planning commission. I will kill it. That will be my vote.
Okay, does that make sense procedurally?
Oh, no. Are we ready to vote? Okay, All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
So I'd make a motion to table this for a date certain in January,
No, if we
Can we
table,
do
it's
that?
gonna go to the next.
Yeah.
Council
the
meeting.
next council meeting,
Right,
which could be in yeah, well, the
Which
next
will
council
be
meeting's in January.
but and as council member Sandra pointed out, we would need to take action at that meeting where it would expire
No matter
on the
what.
table. As opposed to if we had what you're proposing, which is would be a motion to reconsider on a date certain. And we could pick a date, say this is the date's gonna come back.
Would
Can
it
I,
have to be finished then?
Say again,
Would it have to be finished and complete?
it wouldn't have to be in the sense that it would expire if action wasn't taken, it could be continued. But if it's tabled, something needs to be done at the next meeting. If not, it would just expire. It puts an expiration clock on it.
can I ask what the intention is? Is there, do you? I don't know what to ask. Like,
Well,
do you
my-
want to
my-
redirect?
No, my intention is that I think the ordinance is fine,
Okay,
but if this has to go anywhere, it's gonna have to go to the new planner.
we are contracted to finish out the changes to R3.
Okay, well, then it's gonna have to go back to you to meet those requirements that Madam Mayor wishes.
Which then we would recommend it go back to the planning commission because those are significant enough changes that they need to go back through a public hearing.
Well, I won't send it back there, so I will just kill it. So that's where I stand on
We had a motion for a vote, and then we had a motion to table, but no second. So either we need a second on the motion to table, we'd hear it at the next regular meeting in January. Or a vote on the substantive motion that's before the substantive ordinance that's before council.
Can it go through a public hearing here at that meeting
After a second
Um,
reading.
if we change it?
I thought we've had our hearing on this one.
Had a hearing and first reading passed.
Okay, so yeah, if we wanted to, yeah, if we're gonna have a second hearing, we want to make sure we notice it properly. So it's gonna take, just like we typically would, 2 weeks notice published. I presume we could, we wouldn't have to, we've already had a hearing on it, but again, if we make substantial changes to it, we may want to have a hearing. An additional hearing,
And we could
because
do
we've kind
that.
of, in a sense, if we've made that change, then the argument is that the public didn't have notice with respect to that form of that ordinance. It's changed significantly. I think it would justify another hearing. But again, it's just a chicken and egg issue, because if it's a significant change, then as the planners have recommended, it should go back to the commission.
But it doesn't have to, I guess.
It probably should.
Parking's addressed already in chapter 20, and we're talking about getting chapter 20 updated expeditiously. Separate from this, and this is a really great piece of. The 10 feet is maybe what's still of issue, and I don't know where we get to on R3. For the 10 feet, which is written into what we have in front of us. So I guess what I would say is, after the discussion we've had tonight, and thank you for indulging me in the parking discussion, and as we work through chapter 20 expeditiously, I'm gonna take back whatever I said before, and I'm just gonna say I move to approve on its second reading of ordinance 1047, the ordinance of City of Benton City, proposed provision to Benton City Municipal Code 2024 R3 Residential High Standard District.
Yeah, that's already on the floor.
That's already
It's
on the
asking
It's been
for
seconded, so
You're
I'm
asking for
voting
vote.
for it. I'm
So-
voting for it. I vote yes.
an aye.
Okay. All in favor?
You want to start or
I'm no.
read I?
Funk, aye.
Alcazar, I.
Wadsworth, I.
Okay, motion carries. So we have the design standards as they stand, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, any changes will only come in the parking code, or are we gonna consider these again? I just want to be clear.
You can consider them again. There's nothing stopping you from future changes.
Correct.
And that's what I'm saying. I mean, I think we can always revisit your concern.
And we'd like to, I've heard
Yes.
support from council that we'd like to expeditiously work through the rest of Title 20. So that we're wrapped up with good changes.
All right. Okay, moving on. The next is ordinance 1048. An ordinance of Benton City, Washington, amending the Benton City zoning map and reclassifying certain real property to implement the Benton City Comprehensive Plan 2017 with the 2022 amendments.
Okay. I move to approve on its second reading ordinance 1048, 2022 comprehensive plan amendment docket. An ordinance of the city of Benton City, Washington, amending Benton City zoning map, reclassifying certain real property to implement the Benton City comprehensive plan, to implement into the city of Benton City comprehensive plan 2017 with the 2022 amendments.
Second,
Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Sandra, do I?
Wadsworth, I.
Reed, I.
Funk eye.
Alcazar, I.
Okay, motion carries. The next item is ordinance 1049. An ordinance of the city of Benton City, Washington, amending Benton City Comprehensive Plan 2017 with 2022 amendments.
I move to approve on its second reading ordinance 1049 area wide rezone. An ordinance of the city of Benton City, Washington.
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Sandra, do I?
Wadsworth, I.
Reed, I.
Funk eye.
Alcazar, I.
Okay, motion carries. All right. The next item is authorization of interlocal agreement 1406. Provide for the collection, administration, and allocation of Benton County retained portions of the affordable and supporting housing sales and use tax.
I move to
Yeah.
approve interlocal agreement between County of Benton and the city of Benton City, the city of Kennewick, the city of Prosser, the city of Richland, and the city of West Richland regarding administering funds generated as a result of state of the affordable housing for all surcharge, RCW 36.22.178.
Second,
Okay. Is there any discussion?
Just a renewal, right? Yeah, no.
Okay. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Sandra, do I?
Wadsworth, I.
Funk eye.
Reed, I.
Alcazar, I.
Okay, motion carries. Reauthorization of interlocal agreement 2163, administering funds generated as a result of state of the affordable housing for all surcharges.
I move to approve interlocal agreement between the county of Benton, the city of Benton City, the city of Kennewick, the city of Prosser, the city of Richland, and the city of West Richland regarding administering funds generated as a result the state of affordable housing for all surcharge, RCW 3622.178. And this says it's a reauthorization also.
Mhm.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Sandra, do I?
Wadsworth, I.
Reed, I.
Funk eye.
Alcazar, I.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, then reauthorization of interlocal agreement number 2060. administering funds generated as a result of the state of the affordable housing for all surcharges.
I think we might have these out of order.
Oh,
We have them out of order. I'm going by the order of the agenda, so I'm
Oh,
just gonna do the
I
third
probably
one.
messed
Do
it
the
up
third
when I was
This
doing-
says it's an authorization, not a reauthorization of interlocal agreement 1406 on PDF page 217. Again, authorization, not a reauthorization. I move to approve interlocal agreement between County of Benton, City of Benton City, City of Kennewick, City of Prosser, the City of Richland, and the City of West Richland, providing the local homeless housing and assistance plans and programs for the collection and administration and allocation of the county retained portions of the affordable and supportive housing dash sales and use tax, RCW 82.14.540.
Second,
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Sandra, do I?
Wadsworth, I.
Reed, I.
Thunk, I.
Alcazar, I.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, Mr. Rainey, this is the 414 9th Street sewer relocation charge, change order 2.
Correct. And under K-12, I think I probably confused staff a little bit. So the first page, that actually goes with the next item. So the second page under K-12 is the change order.
Okay.
And I think we've talked a little bit about a lot of these things.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, you're finding steel pipes and you're moving this and you're moving that, and costing more money,
Yeah.
but you include sales tax now, so that's a
Gonna
good
say,
thing.
he puts it in there. So if there's no questions, I move to approve 414 9th Street. To change order number 2 in the amount of 16,227.65, which includes sales tax.
Second.
Sandra, do I?
Wadsworth, I.
Reed, I.
Thunk, I.
Alcazar, I.
Thank you.
Okay, motion carries.
We were done with
Thanks,
this
sir.
thing.
Thank you so much, Alan.
So what I just handed you was the
Retainage?
no, well, it calls
in
out
the packet.
retainage in there,
Oh.
but it was in the packet under the K-12, should have been under the K-13.
Oh,
And so this is recommendation for approval of the 9th Street sidewalk project. We got sewer project put in there. This is for the 9th Street sidewalk project. We got all the punch list items completed. Got the
You got
contract.
you got the little cracks in the yard there fixed.
We got, well, we're watching those. There was a crack in one of the driveways. Somebody was
I was-
asking about that.
I was thinking about the lady with the,
Oh, yes, we have that driveway fixed too.
so I don't think Madam Mayor nor myself would like that to come back and
No,
come down here.
no, that's been taken care of.
Okay,
Alan, is this the last step then to be able to also go back to the county to seek reimbursement? for what
Yes,
they're
and
giving us?
that is the next step is we have one reimbursement from DOT and then a full reimbursement from the county. And won't be quite the $190,000, but it'll be up close to that. But
Excellent.
it'll be based off the costs of the project.
I move to accept the 9th Street. So it says sewer project, but we don't like what's on the page either. Should it be sewer project?
No, it should be 9th Street sidewalk project.
Okay,
Yeah.
I move to accept the 9th Street sidewalk project completed in apparent compliance by Elba Excavation on May 27th, 2022 for the total amount of $399, $793.52.
Second.
Sandra, do I?
Wadsworth, I.
Reed, I.
Thunk, I.
Alcazar, I.
okay, motion
Okay.
carries.
All right, thank you.
Wait. Thank you, Alan.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you.
Glad you're feeling better.
Glad you're back.
I heard somebody said you were about dead.
Okay. The last item I think we have on here now is the approval of the planning position contract. And that is, I don't have that.
SCJ Alliance.
is for $50,000 and a start date of January 6th.
I move to approve the planning position contract between SCJ Alliance and the city of Benton City, Washington, at an amount not to exceed $50,000 annually.
Second,
Okay, is there any discussion?
Sandra, do I?
Wadsworth, I.
Reed, I.
Okay.
Alcazar, I.
Okay. Motion carries. Thank you. Now
Council comments,
we have two planners for a while.
all right?
Planning.
No, it's time for comments, right?
Yes.
I know we didn't adjust the agenda and my apologies, but can we still approve canceling our January 3rd meeting?
We can do that.
Okay. It was recommended by staff based on the fact that they're going to be off for holiday. Quite a bit. They'll have about 3 days to work. I don't mind rescheduling it for the following week. If we wanted to do it 2 weeks, that's fine. But it'd probably be a good idea for us to cancel the January 3rd meeting. Just because staff is not going to have time to put anything together very well.
I'm supportive of moving the meeting from January 3rd to the 10th.
I will not be in that meeting.
The 10th, you mean?
No.
Okay. But you're okay with us canceling the 3rd?
Yep.
Ms. Alcazar,
I'm okay with canceling the third, the 10th, kind of not sure about yet.
okay. But we can get a confirmed 3 here. Okay. So I'll make the motion to cancel the January 3rd meeting, noticing a special meeting for council to conduct business on January 10th.
Second.
Sandra, do I?
Wadsworth, I.
Reed, I.
Okay.
Alcazar, I.
Okay.
My final note in comment, Madam Mayor, if I may have the floor.
Yes, you may.
I'd like to thank everybody for their hard work on the budget. I'd like to thank all the input that we've had going forward. I'd like to welcome Ms. Alcazar as being sworn into the council. And I appreciate to see the work we've done this year as a council, as a team. There's a lot still yet to go. And I'd like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
I'd like to second that.
Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor? Absolutely.
Got a vote?
And then on that note, if nobody else says anything, I'll motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All right.
Aye.
Do we have a second?
Yes, I second.